Hi guys. So you want to learn mathematics and you're somebody who already did some degree or maybe just high school, or you did law, for instance, or literature, and you suddenly have this great idea that you want to continue your education. Maybe you want to go into research in some quantitative field. Maybe you want to change your job for whatever reason. You need mathematics. And the question is, can you do it? And the answer is yes, you can do it. And then the other question is how you can do it. And I would say that you could do two things. You could do self-study, or you can find some tutor. You can also sign up for some formal classes. And I think that all of these options are possible. I think self-study is the hardest, but all of them are possible. In any event, you would need textbooks. Particularly if you are doing self-study, you will need some good textbooks. But even if you're not doing self-study, you might be one of those people like me, for instance, who actually wants to read a textbook, read explanations written in English, and in order to grasp the actual material that you are studying and to gain some intuition about what is going on. And I would say this is very important in mathematics. You cannot just look at formulas and memorize them or apply them without having some intuition about what is going on. And this is what I would like to do here. I would like to help you with which textbooks you should use. And now the reason why I think I can do that is because I studied law, and I studied law about 20 years ago. And then in 2017, I decided that I want to become an economist. Well, I decided a bit earlier, but in 2007, I actually made the big step. I took the graduate diploma in economics course in Birkbeck College in London, and it was great. And I plunged into mathematics, having studied mathematics before that, back in the early 90s when I was a pupil at school. So that was very difficult, and I can understand the difficulty of any of you that you would now be trying to move into math. So here's what, without much ado, here's what I want to tell you. There's 3 textbooks that I would like to recommend to you, and this is the first one. So this one is Maths for Economics by Geoff Renshaw. So I'm showing you here the 3rd edition, but there's a newer edition that you can get, and it's as good as the one that I'm holding in my hands. You can also get the previous editions. The 1st, the 2nd are equally good. I have seen them in the library. The difference is mainly the layout, and maybe some typos have been corrected, yes. But the first ones are as good as this one. So I very strongly would recommend that you start with this one, and I'm saying this, of course, if you are about to go into economics, this is an excellent start. If you are not going into economics, it's still an excellent start, and I'll explain why. And then I would recommend you a second one, which is, it is this one. This one is Brief Calculus and its Applications. I'm holding here the 11th edition, and the authors are Goldstein, Ley, Snyder, and Asmar. I'm showing you this closer so you can see. And the third one that I would strongly recommend to you, it's a little more advanced. Now, well, let me explain. Yeah, the third one is a little more advanced, and this is the first course in mathematical analysis by David Brennan. Here's the textbook. So let me explain. I will show you a 4th one, but let's stick to these 3 ones. The first 3 I showed you. So let me explain a little more. This is the first one I showed you. This is the one that you should start with, and the other one is a little more complex. So you start with this one because this is very easy. By the way, this one has a quick introduction to the algebra that you're going to need. in order to learn calculus. And so the first 130 pages of this textbook is revising basic algebra. The whole textbook is about 700 pages, a little less than that. And it's mostly calculus. It's very easy to follow. This is not this dense, dry, mathematical, full of mathematical formulas textbook, incomprehensible, not explaining stuff. This textbook, its chief merit is that it's very chatty. It explains stuff in English. It has long texts of explanations, for instance, about what is a derivative, what does it mean, how it is derived, and the derivation of it. Of course, there's a mathematical derivation, but there's so much explanation that goes along with it that even if you are not very familiar with the mathematical logic and the way mathematicians reason, this will not be super tough for you to follow. You just need to have some basic flair for logic and a little bit of algebra. You have to revise your high school algebra. That's an absolute must. And you know how to do that. I'm not gonna go into that. Once you have that, just read the book carefully, and I guarantee you that you will manage, even if you are studying this on your own, you will manage to grasp the basic ideas. And I have seen dozens of other introductory textbooks into calculus, and I can say this is absolutely the best, by far the best. I mean, again, I'm saying start with this one. Maths for Economics, Geoffranchot. It doesn't matter if you don't want to go into economics. This will explain to you in very simple terms the single variable, the multivariable calculus, the constraint optimization problems, Lagrangian multipliers, and a lot more. Integration, matrix analysis is also explained in very easy to follow way. Now the other one that I showed you is the brief calculus and its applications, and I would say don't start with this. If you are an absolute beginner in calculus, don't start with this. You could, but it will be a lot harder. It will be much easier if you start with this one. So please start with this one if you have never done calculus, or if maybe you have done it but you never understood anything about it, or you totally forgot what it is. Just start here. Now, if you are a little more advanced, of course, you can just then directly go with this book and revise quickly calculus. But in any event, I would suggest that you get this one, because this one I find extremely easy and intuitive. It is a little higher level than Geoffranchot. So this textbook is not for economists. It's not for people who are absolute beginners. It's more targeted to people who are going into technology or engineering. The notation here is a little more dense and a little more difficult to follow if you are a beginner. But if you've already done this, following this textbook will be very easy. So I would say you could probably go through this whole book from start to end, or maybe you can skip the first 130 pages with a revision of algebra, if you feel confident with that, and just go directly to calculus. And you can then maybe go into this textbook, but don't necessarily have to follow the entire textbook. You could revise or look at certain things that are unfamiliar, because here you will see a little more calculus that goes a little more into analysis, and that will prepare you for analysis, by the way. So again, I'm saying start here and then move on to this textbook, or start here, and as you are working through some of the chapters of this book, you can then, once you've read a chapter on something, then you can go into this textbook. So in parallel, you can do it in parallel, but always start here if you're a beginner, and then look what this textbook says, and it will give you a little more depth. I think both ways are valid. I personally, what I did is I was using the Geofranco textbook, and because I wanted to go in a little more depth, I was also looking at certain issues in this textbook, in another edition, but basically into this textbook. Now, if you want to really solidify your knowledge, once you've done the first one, I would recommend just do the entire brief calculus again with a little more depth, and then you will be ready to plunge into mathematical analysis, first course in mathematical analysis. I've looked at many books on mathematical analysis, real analysis, and they all looked terrible, like totally incomprehensible. And this one is just so much easier. I would also recommend to you that if you have difficulties with whatever issue, whether in the more advanced material here in analysis or in calculus, you can always look at the Khan Academy. The Khan Academy has a couple of great videos that explain stuff like continuity, differentiability of a function, and the guy explains things in an extremely intuitive and easy way. And then when you also go through this textbook, you will really gain some confidence and depth in understanding calculus and its more advanced version, the mathematical analysis. So I said from the beginning that I'm going to show you 3 textbooks and a 4th one. Now the 4th one goes into even more depth, but it's targeted at economists. And because I'm actually studying for a PhD in economics right now, naturally I'm more interested in textbooks that are oriented towards economics. So if you want to continue afterwards into economics and do economics in a sort of more quantitative way with more depth, I would say further mathematics for economic analysis would be a great choice. It explains, and it will be particularly easy to transition to this textbook if you have done the 3 previous ones, including this one. Now, you could go quickly through this one and then pick up this one, which explains analysis with in even more depth on certain issues, in a way that's particularly relevant for people who are doing economics. But this one goes in many other areas, and it explains in much greater depth, for instance, how to do the Hessian matrices and how to find the eigenvalues, which are important when you're doing multivariate constraint optimization, the Lagrangians, and it explains a lot of other things that are really important in more advanced economic work, and they can prepare you for a PhD. So this is what I wanted to tell you. Don't be scared of mathematics. Mathematics is maybe at some point it becomes rocket science, but let me tell you, starting with calculus is not rocket science. It's doable. I'm a lawyer. I've studied mathematics at school in the early 90s for the last time. Then I worked as a lawyer for almost 20 years. Well, less than 20 years. But I didn't do any math for 20 years. I didn't know what a derivative is, and I still went for maths. I used those textbooks, and I am pretty confident now with my math. I actually got at Birkbeck very, very high grades in mathematics, 73 out of 100, and I got 78 out of 100 in econometrics. I'm not special, you can do it. And those are some of the best textbooks in English that you can get your hands on. So be brave, be courageous, study, and use those textbooks, and you'll be fine. Thank you for watching.